everyone for being here. I feel a little naked. I left my hat in the back, so forgive me for that. I would like to welcome up a young man that I met recently after confronting AOC, who invited me on his YouTube show to do an interview. Muhammad Mirza, a young political journalist and analyst who I have faith that he will become one of the next big names in journalism, and I feel confident. I want all of you to give a warm welcome to a young and aspiring political journalist, because I think we've all been there wanting to have this opportunity. I'm so glad to be able to welcome my friend Muhammad to the stage to give a short speech. My friend, thank you for being here. Thank you.
In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful, I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to address this gathering. Today, we gather here in solidarity with the victims of war and imperialism, with the victims of greed and racism. Today, we have gathered for those individuals who have hopefully decided to leave their personal interests in serving the people of this world, in providing true and accurate information, and by leaving their biases and by taking one of the most important tasks and duties and responsibilities in supporting a movement which has been criticized by those who benefit from murdering other people. Which has been criticized by those who benefit from murdering other people. By standing against wars and bloodshed, we here have proved that we're not going to buy on to the war narrative or the agenda of those corporations or lobbies that benefit from weapon sales, human bloodshed, and human suffering. We are here to denounce war and bloodshed and to sympathize with war victims, the countless refugees who are running away from mercenaries and brutalities of wars, looking for shelter. If they manage to escape from the bombshells and the gunshots in their war-torn countries, they end up losing their children to the harsh ocean waves. The war is illegally imposed by those imperialist, capitalist powers. They are those rich politicians and CEOs who fund and promote wars for their own interests, to fill their own filthy stomachs, while children are starving to death in Yemen, Palestine, Afghanistan, and Iraq. How many times we, the American people, are going to get fooled into illegal wars, the false flag of WMDs that led to the Iraq War. The false flag of WMDs that led to the Iraq War. We're talking about 20 years of misery for the locals of Iraq and Afghanistan, spending $8 trillion of US taxpayer dollars and killing 926,000 civilians, and not to forget thousands of years of human civilization in Iraq. And let's not forget those victims who died, the thousands of victims who died on 9/11 to create a pretext for this war. It is extremely important that we distinguish falsehood from the truth, propaganda from reality, as they have tried time and again to somehow hide the facts from the people by silencing the media that speaks out against them. In the conflict of Ukraine, revealed the double standards and the hypocritical politicians, as when Arabs, Africans, or Muslims are being driven out by their invasions, they're considered terrorists, and when they take up arms to defend themselves from foreign powers, they're blacklisted, and when they raise their voices, they're silenced. But when white European with blue eyes and blonde hair do all those, they're considered civilized and receive all of Western media's attention. They're also humans. Why are we, whether they're white or black, but why is there selective sympathization? It's a racist mainstream media coverage which has led to the xenophobia or the preference of one race over the other that we can see in the rise of the attacks on Asian communities here, or we can see the rise of Islamophobia. Why are Muslims considered terrorists? Why are Muslims considered terrorists? Why is terrorism only being used to describe Muslims, not for Nazis, not for supremacists, causing bloodshed around the globe? I would never recommend learning from your Islam from Western mainstream media. Rather refer to the Holy Quran. According to the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, killing one innocent human is as if you have killed the whole whole humanity. And saving one innocent human is as if you have saved the whole humanity. Our religion teaches us to defend ourselves, not to fight wars. It's a peaceful religion. After this, those neoliberal mouthpieces still have the audacity to come out and promote human rights and champion freedom in the West, who pretend to champion human rights for their own interests and to compromising the truth, to fund for example, for funding the Israeli Iron Dome. What kind of freedom is this when people like Julian Assange are being persecuted for revealing war crimes? I only see freedom. Free Assange! Free Assange! I only see freedom for those who are making warmongering policies while sitting in the comfort in the White House, while journalists who reveal the truth are being persecuted. As Malcolm X once said, this is irresponsible media. It will make the criminal look like a victim, and a victim look like a criminal. If you aren't careful, the media will have you hating the people being oppressed and loving the people who are doing oppression. This is a sort of propaganda and a tactic that I would call psychological warfare. This battle of truth and falsehood, let's continue our struggle. We believe that the truth will be victorious. Our small voices can be a thorn in the eyes of the oppressors. When the tyrant at the time wanted to burn Prophet Abraham, remember, when the tyrant at the time wanted to burn Prophet Abraham, a small bird would come and drop a small amount of water. No matter how small the efforts is, we will still continue. In history, we have seen great examples of leaders. One of the greatest leaders that we have seen was Hussein, son of Ali. Hussein, the grandson of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Hussein, 1400 years ago, was under a caliphate of a tyrannical dictator and a mercenary Yazid who treated his opponents like scum. Hussein fearlessly stood up against Yazid with only a handful of companions against thousands and said, Hayhat min dhillah, I'll never accept humiliation. I'll never accept humiliation. His loyal companions, all of them were gone. The men from his family were dead, including a 6-month-old child. The women were beaten and paraded through cities, but despite this supposed defeat, Hussein never gave up. Hussein never stood down. And he remained a role model for generations to come, as greats such as Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Imam Khomeini, and Qasim Soleimani, who were all inspired by this one Hussein. And despite all his limitations, he was able to make such a big impact on the globe. His stance is alive today with all those who seek freedom. The stance that I'll never bow down to an oppressor and will always stand tall and never compromise my values. This inspiration is why the resistance is alive today. And this movement is stronger than ever. And the enemy is weaker than ever. Remember, Israel is weaker than the web of a spider. And today, the people of the world are waking up to the call, to the lies and the deceptions, and seeing the reality of these hollow words of politicians and those who claim to be supporting the people of Yemen, Palestine, and Syria, but then send money to terrorists. Let's open our eyes to the crimes of these bloodthirsty imperialist regimes and to the lies that have been speaking to justify these crimes. If Prophet Jesus was alive today, he would not be silent, he would not be passive or indifferent to injustice. He would do anything to stop the brutalities on Palestinians, as well as human suffering in Yemen, and the racism against African Americans, all the illegal and brutal wars and harsh economic sanctions that this country has imposed on other nations. I would like to see a world where peace and justice is the order of the day. And if we want to see peace in this country, if we want to solve the problem of institutionalized racism deeply rooted in the system, evils like police brutality, the harsh economic injustice, exploitation of resources by 1% capitalists, poverty and homelessness, then we have to stop all illegal wars on other nations, bring back the troops, Stop bullying other nations and treating them like animals. Stop meddling in other nations' affairs, be it Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, Syria, or Afghanistan. Let's not make this one event a ritual. Let's take a message, a resolution, not to come back. Let's take a stance, a tall stance. Let's stand tall to bring this resistance into our daily lives by using the tools of the Zionists, for example, social media, in our own benefit. And we must organize events and demonstrations, not remaining silent to injustice and occupation with our utmost capacity that we have. As Hussein once said, staying silent under oppression is as if you're part of that oppression, and the days of the oppressors are numbered, and this is a promise of God. Thank you so much.
Stay up here. Stay up here. You mentioned Imam Hussein in your beautiful remarks, and thank you for coming here and giving these remarks. And I got to tell you, I've spent a lot of time in Iran, and it was in my travels in Iran that I developed a deep admiration for the Shia revolutionary tradition of standing against injustice. And I really want to thank you for coming here and making these bold remarks, and doing so. I want to thank you so much. So thank you very much for giving such a spirited remark, for calling out imperialism and Zionism, and doing everything you can. I want to thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
It was an honor being here.
Yes, absolutely.